Awesome show today. I'm going to talk about why that 14-15 Badgers team was the best team in the country that year with an amazing guest. Today's Locked On Badgers. Let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. I'm your host, Ryan Herring, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. We got a great guest on, and like I said, we always get great guests. We don't waste any time. We get right into it. Josh Gosser joins the show, Captain America himself. I want to start here. I've always had this question for you because obviously a huge part of those 14-15 teams was back-to-back deep runs, being honored this weekend, bringing everybody together for the Arizona game, raising Bo Ryan's banner. Do you think if you had played Duke first and then Kentucky, it would have gone differently? Because I think Kentucky was the national title. I mean, it wasn't, but it was you in Kentucky. Do you think it ends differently if the orders were first?
That's a good question. I could say yes, but that's proven wrong because we lost to Duke earlier in the year as well. So it's it's one of those things. But certainly the Kentucky matchup. I mean, you saw I think it was the highest rated basketball game still to date ever to play or something like that. So it definitely had a lot of buzz. It was a lot of energy, a lot of focus, obviously. But I don't know. I mean, I have my opinions on both those games, obviously, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about them. But Duke, who's exceptionally well coached. I mean, Coach K, obviously, it speaks for itself. They obviously have really good players. They played us exactly how I would play us if I was coaching another team or like that. So both those games were fun. But yeah, we could do a lot of what ifs, but it worked out all right.
Let me ask you this, because I got a bunch of questions from people. Knowing you come on the show, you're still a fan favorite. Hopefully you know that. White Marlin asks, how did it feel to be a part of the best Badgers basketball team in modern history? And did it sink in that moment? Or did it take a while to realize that?
In the moment, you're not thinking about anything, but just like having fun with your friends and your teammates, and just going to work every day. Especially what happened the year before, losing in the Final Four in a close game. It was just kind of every day, just the process, right? Didn't think about too far down the road. We didn't think about anything but kind of what was in front of us. But as a kid growing up in Wisconsin, I didn't have any family who were athletes. Like, I'm talking even like high school athletes, like it wasn't like I had this, uncle or dad who played in the NBA. Like there was nothing like that, even in my hometown. Like nobody played college basketball in the history of my hometown or anything like that. So it wasn't even like on the roadmap for me to, play college basketball. 1, 2, play for your home state, and then 3, play for the best team, to ever come through Wisconsin. So pretty surreal, obviously, and learned pretty quickly throughout that 2015 team that this team is really good. Like we actually are, like, no matter what era we're in, no matter what season it is, like we're legit. And I think it proved out that way pretty well throughout the whole year.
I mean, I have a bunch of questions, which I'm going to run out of time before I run out of questions with you. I want to dovetail already into something you said, because so many athletes come from athletic families. They come from like that type of pedigree. What drove you down that path? If it wasn't family, school, community, how did you kind of break out of that?
I don't know. I don't know. I was like any other kid. I feel like that, in the summer I played baseball, in the fall I played football, winter I played basketball, I played soccer, like just kind of played all the sports with my friends. Just whatever my friends did, I did. And, we just hung out, played sports, played video games, joked around, did everything like that. And I was a pretty good athlete. I mean, I was a quarterback of the football team and pretty good baseball player. I played up a grade in basketball. Just that was my friends and stuff. And as I got through middle school, I was like, yeah, I'm a pretty good player. Like I'm obviously doing some good things, but never again thought I was anything special. I mean, my high school team, like when I was in 7th and 8th grade, my high school team won one game. They're like 1 in 20 something. Like there was nobody in Port Washington, Wisconsin played basketball. It was a football wrestling community. So like football was big, wrestling was big. I have sisters. None of them really played sports. My dad didn't play basketball. My mom didn't play basketball. I have a huge family of aunts, uncles, cousins. Nobody played. A couple people played varsity basketball, I guess, of the 100 people, like maybe a couple. But like there was no like idol or like someone I could really look up to in my town or my family that like did it before. So I kind of just played sports and played and tried to win. And next thing I knew, I woke up and I was, kind of at that level.
Who taught you to shoot? Where'd you get your jumper from?
I don't know. Just playing by myself. Yeah, like I said, my dad coached me all through my life. My dad coached me, but again, he didn't play basketball. He taught me more about toughness and competitiveness and some little things here and there. But shooting, it just kind of came natural. I guess I was never like a shooter growing up. I was always a point guard. Like I always liked to distribute, get guys the ball, and I could obviously shoot pretty well. But my freshman year in college, I shot 30% from three. I was not a good 3-point shooter. I was kind of left open a little bit, and not because I couldn't shoot. It was more just like a confidence thing. It was more of I spent my whole life playing basketball with the ball in my hands. Like I was always the point guard, and then coming into college, like I didn't touch the ball at all. We had Jordan Taylor running the show, and I was kind of playing off the ball, and it was really hard to get used to like not feeling the ball and having to shoot it, once in an hour, and that was like your one shot for the game. And I just didn't shoot it very well. And then that off season, I spent a lot of time with Gary Close, our assistant coach, and the next year I was, I think led the Big Ten in shooting or something like that. So a lot of work was spent after that, but growing up, it was just kind of more natural.
Let me ask you this: because I think one of the hidden parts of that team that you guys put together, that 15 team, that 14 team, was just the intelligence. Guys like Nigel Hayes, Kaminsky, yourself in the backcourt, Koenig, just really, really smart players. What's an underrated aspect of that team do you think that doesn't get talked about enough?
Yeah, I think it's certainly that. I think it's a little bit of like mental toughness too. I think, when you think about that team, I don't think you think of like people think of toughness as like, oh, they're like physically tough, like they're bulldozing people, they're setting mean screens, they're elbowing people. Like we had a different type of toughness. We had like a fearlessness, I think, that between all the guys that I think Trayvon Jackson, exceptionally fearless, Sam Decker, swagger on the court, Bronson, Nigel, nobody was better than Nigel in his mind. Frank had this maturity that he got in terms of that he didn't have earlier in his career. So we just had a level of, I think, fearlessness. No moment was too big for us. We all wanted to take the big shot. We all proved we could make big shots. And then lastly, I just think we just like fit like a puzzle. I mean, we had obviously really good players and we were a good team, but the way we gelled and fit together, I mean, you look at our front court that year, we had Frank Kaminsky, Sam Decker, Nigel Hayes, and Douye Dukin. Like all four of those guys did something different, but like fit really well together. Douye could come in and just sniper from three. Sam was more an athletic slasher. Nigel was kind of a versatile wing defender, post, step out. And Frank could obviously do it also. Just, different guys could do different things that just fit and complement each other so well. And same thing in the backcourt. Trey Jackson was more of a, physical point guard, ball in his hands, get downhill. Bronson Koenig more of a skilled, shooter. And me kind of, a little bit of both. Didn't need the ball in my hands, but 3-and-D, point guard, get people involved. So we all fit together and could put out different lineups in that. And yeah, to your point, we were smart, played well together, and sometimes it's as easy as that.
Tough question here, but I'm super curious on this. Do you think it's possible to put a team like that together in the NIL era, where you have a bunch of guys that really took their time, came together? Dukin is a great example of that. Yep. It feels like in the NIL era, it's hard to hang on to a really talented guy who's maybe your 7th or 8th guy.
No, I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's, there might be a Wisconsin Badger team that wins a national title, whatever. But to have like cohesive group and the people, that's what I'm proud of. We kind of we went through it together. Like we all individually had our own journeys. Like I could go down a list of guys who had to fight through stuff. You mentioned Douye, didn't play much early on. Same thing with Frank. I had an injury. Trey had an injury. A lot of guys had to fight through stuff and battle through stuff to get to that point. We had to do it together. And that's what makes it, I think, even more special. Like it's, this Badger team could win the national championship this year, and it might feel a little different than, even those years past, just because you got to know guys, you got to develop, you got to go through the battles with them and it's nothing wrong with this era. It's just that's the way it is, and it's kind of harder to relate to, or it's harder to get used to right now. But either way, I mean, I'm kind of glad I grew up in the era I did, just because there's a process to it. You know what I mean?
Hey, who's the best shooter on that team?
I think Bronson Koenig is the best shooter I've ever played with or seen, honestly. Bronson Koenig is, I mean, I played with Ben Brust the year before. He was an exceptional shooter. I mean, Frank is a big guy, but Bronson, every time Bronson shot the ball, I thought it was going in. And, you know, there's a good shooters. Like, there's a lot of good, like Kyle Korver, if we're talking NBA, is a great shooter, but maybe not as great as like a shot maker. Bronson was a great shot maker and shooter. And like, hezzy pulls, off screens, step backs, deep range, catch and shoot, and clutch. Like, that dude was clutch. So I think he was the best shooter in Wisconsin history, to be honest.
Let me ask you this, because as a fan, I'm watching that national title game, right? And like, it killed me. Like, it is what it is. I not trying to overstate my pain from that game because you played in it. Like, as an athlete, how long does it take to get over that type of game? Do you ever? Or what's the process after something like that?
TBD. Still
Yeah.
trying. No, yeah, it's one of those things that'll stick with you forever, and not in like a life altering way. It is what it is. Like, I got family, kids, I got friendship. Like, that's just more important. But at the same time, like, it still definitely hurts because and you know, every year we lost in the tournament. You know what I mean? Like, there's only one team that wins, and but that year felt different. Like, that loss felt different than even the year before. We lost to Kentucky in that close game. And just because I think 2015, I think we were just like that good, legitimately. Like, I felt like we were actually like national title worthy, and like we deserved it, and we worked towards it, and we had the, you know, like I said, any era, any season. There are some years in college basketball where there's not really any great teams. There are some years where there's many of them. I felt like that team in 2015, like, no matter what year we played in, we would have had a shot to win the national title and would have deserved it. So it's kind of shitty, you know, that we didn't. But, you know, we got pretty close in a really loaded year, and you know, came down to maybe a few possessions that would have changed it. But still, you know, the memories and stuff like that are probably more important at the end of the day. It still would have been nice to have.
That run was incredible. And just really quickly before we take our first break, we recently had a rewatch party. We went to Madison and a bunch of people came together. We rewatched the Kentucky game, you know, the third game. And you can just tell people loved that team. They loved that run. They loved your group of guys, your teammates, yourself. And just so you know, like, again, people came together and rewatched that game with me a couple weeks ago for the Penn State game when we were there, and we had beers and wings and we watched it. So that run still resonates with a lot of Badger fans. And I think, you know, you probably already know that, but you should be told that again. Like, it was really memorable.
Yeah, no, it's super cool. I think I do think people appreciated like the process and the work we put in and the personalities. You know, guys like Nigel and Frank and Sam. I mean, I think we were all, you know, fairly likable guys, and I think did things the right way. Which is, you know, Coach Ryan and Coach Gard, like, do things the right way. There's a process to it, and I think we really fit the Wisconsin culture. You know, the way we kind of handled things and took things to the next level. So we appreciated all the fans too, trust me, because we couldn't have made it, you know, as far without the support. No doubt about that.
Well, we're going to talk about one of those key figures coming up next, Bo Ryan, Coach Ryan, getting the banner hung in the Basketball Hall of Fame, Naismith Hall of Fame. Talk about that next with Josh, but first, a quick break from our friends of the show over at Gametime. Gametime remains your number one source for all your ticketing needs. And listen, big game coming up this Friday. Wisconsin, number 9 Arizona, Kohl Center. You can see the Final Four reunion. You can see the banner for Bo Ryan rightfully hung up in the air. Go to Gametime. Get your tickets for that game. You're not going to find a better spot to get the best tickets over at Gametime. Great prices, panoramic views of the seats before you sit down. You're going to know exactly what seat you're going to get and what lines of sight you're going to be able to see the Kohl Center from over at Gametime. Download the Gametime app today. Use code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Snake the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. I've used Gametime. It's incredible. Go get all your ticket needs over at gametime.com. All right, let's jump back into this conversation with Josh. Obviously, one of the most beloved Badgers. I was doing some research for this show, man, and I didn't even realize nobody's won more Badger games that they played in than you. Do you know that?
I do know that. Yeah. That's one I'm kind of proud of. I don't really care about, you know, whatever, any of that stuff. But to win the most games, I think win the most NCAA tournament games, like, that's cliche, but truly the reason why I played. Like, I didn't care about anything else other than the Wisconsin Badgers winning games. So to know that I played a lot of minutes and, you know, we won games, like, makes you feel like you did something right and you were part of good teams and good group of guys. Like, honestly, it's the only thing I cared about was winning games. So to have the most wins, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of cool.
17 of them, man. Most wins, second most minutes played in program history, first triple-double in program history. I want to talk about Bo Ryan for a second. Hall of Fame coach, incredible guy. What was your first impressions of Bo? Like when you first met him?
I was scared of him to admit when I first. I mean, on my visit, because I was a Wisconsin kid, and I remember on my visit, I didn't feel like I belonged necessarily. I was still kind of getting recruited. I wasn't this 5-star recruit or anything. So a little intimidated, and then you step into a practice, and he wasn't as intense as I thought, maybe because he's in practices he doesn't talk a lot, but when he does, he gets on you. So, but just Coach Ryan in general, I always appreciated his consistency in terms of what he preached. Like it wasn't like you missed a shot or you did something and he told you did something wrong, and the next day he's telling you something different. Like it was always the same thing every single day, every single rep, so if you just did it, you're usually in a good spot, and your team was usually in a good spot. So I appreciated the way he stuck by his guns and like truly believed in what he thought was best, and preached that over and over and over again. There was no mixed messaging. Like there was no debate about what a bad shot was or rebounding or anything like that. It was pretty set in stone, and he stuck by it. And usually when he did things well, it showed. And Coach Ryan definitely eased up throughout my time in Wisconsin. I remember my freshman year is a little more hard-headed than maybe my senior year. So, but yeah, a lot of respect for Coach.
What do you think his legacy is at Wisconsin and in college basketball in general?
College basketball, I don't know. I think like Wisconsin in general, probably more forgotten than he should be. Not that he's forgotten, but just I don't think people out in the West Coast and East Coast really care about Wisconsin that much. So, but I think what really matters is the people that were in Wisconsin, a part of the program, a part of the community, and just saw that he took a program from very little to high levels. And I'll go back to the word consistency again, like just the consistency, the discipline to do it year in and year out. You mentioned the NIL area. Like, I don't know if they're going to Big Ten teams are going to be able to replicate a decade plus or whatever of top 4 in the conference, and consistency with making the NCAA tournament and all that. So I don't know. I think his legacy around Wisconsin is going to be, GOAT, Wisconsin coach, no doubt about that.
I think you're hitting on something that I think a lot of what Bo Ryan did is easy to understand, but it's really hard to replicate. You mentioned the consistency. There's a lot of coaches that aren't going to pull a 5-star kid for a bad shot. There's a lot of coaches who every day aren't going to practice footwork, fundamentals, passing, bounce pass. It's being able to do it consistently that's unique. And it's nothing flashy or special necessarily, but there's a special level of consistency that you're never going to – he's a one-on-one. You're never going to get that again from anybody.
Yeah, I mean, the little stuff works. I mean, we did some really basic shit every day, and just he preached basic stuff, and stuff just works at any level. Taking care of the ball, rebounding, and like I said, it's easy to say that. Every program in the country says we want to take good shots and we want to rebound and play good defense. But I don't think a lot of coaches around people are going to stick to their guns. Like if you lose 2 or 3 straight games, there might be a little bit of a pivot or a little bit of a twist. If somebody, this is how we're doing things. We're going to do it. We're going to keep repping it out. We're going to stick to it, do it harder, do it faster, do it better, work better together. And there was a method and a system there that really worked when all the guys bought in. And it was just getting the guys to buy in. And if you weren't going to buy in, find somebody else to do it, and we'll have a good experience, and it didn't really matter.
2 things on the consistency. I want to ask you this. Is there ever a point in the middle of a game where maybe pick and roll, whatever, the drop coverage isn't working great, and you're like, Coach, let's try possession of zone?
Never zone for me. I was not a fan. I am 100% all in on man-to-man, because I felt like whenever we played against a team in zone, it was always so easy. Like, it was so comfortable. You could just move the ball, do whatever the hell you wanted. Like, it was just easy. But there were times in games where it's like, could we just like blitz up a little bit? Like, can we get that big up? We don't need a hard hedge, but can we just do a little something different? I remember specifically, I think the year I was hurt, 2013. So before the Final 4 years, I was on the bench, and we played Purdue at home, and they're Tyrone Johnson, like pretty, decent player, but not like an All-American or anything. Just kept hitting floaters. Like, I think he probably had like 6 or 7 floaters coming off that screen, and that's the shot we gave up. We gave up those pull-up jumpers, those step-back jumpers, those floaters from 8 to 12 feet. And that was that guy's shot, and we didn't change anything. It was like, man, maybe that was one situation where we maybe could have changed a little bit. But the philosophy was over a course of 40 minutes, are all those 2-point jump shots going to beat us? And typically they didn't. Typically it was, they got, out in transition 4 or 5 times, or they got some kick out threes, or they got to the free throw line. That's usually the stuff that beats you, as opposed to, it's hard to get 70 points in a game off floaters and 2-point step back jumpers. And I believe that too. And I bought into that, and I still buy into that. But there's personnel changes where sometimes it's like we can get a step or two higher, maybe.
And to your point, though, is a great point, because most guards they don't protect, and they don't do that in the gym. They don't work on their 12-foot floater. They're getting to the rim or shooting threes, right? So forcing into that spot is difficult.
Or they do work on that stuff, but typically those shots are easier when you're already going. And, I guarded the best player on the other team, pretty much every game. So and my objective every single time was don't let them get going. Delay this player feeling good, because, I averaged 25, 30 in high school. So I know what it's like to see the ball go in the basket early on, and every shot from there on is easier. So those floaters, those step back twos are a lot more difficult when you haven't seen the ball go in the rim yet. But if you got out and got a transition dunk, or got a wide open kick out three before that, then that floater is a pretty easy shot. So for us, it was just all about, limiting the easy stuff, so their players don't feel good, don't have that extra pep in their step, that extra confidence, because then those step back twos are a little more difficult to get going, as opposed to when you're already going, those shots are a little easier.
One more question on Bo Ryan, and I'm going to run out of questions before time, but I promise not to keep you longer than. What's it going to be like coming back this weekend? This is a big game, Arizona. You're going to be not you, but Wisconsin's going to be hanging Bo Ryan's banner, honoring the Final Four teams. This is a stripe-out weekend, by the way, Badger fans. Go to UW Badgers, check out what color you're supposed to wear. It's going to be a big environment. What is this going to mean this weekend for you and those other guys?
Yeah, for me, it's all that other stuff. To be completely honest with you, I don't know if I really care about it. I just want to see my friends and hang out, get together, go to a couple bars, have some fun. Like I said, I think what made us really good was the camaraderie, the chemistry. There's an age difference, 4 or 5 years between some guys. And we're all at different points in our lives now. Some guys are still playing professionally overseas. Sometimes some guys are, working normal jobs and raising a family. Some guys are living in Europe. Some guys are living in Wisconsin. You don't get to see each other as much as you'd like to. So for me, I'm just really excited to get, a big group of the guys back and just hang out like old times. And I'm sure we won't miss a beat, even though we haven't seen each other in quite a while. So I don't know what the weekend's going to be like. All I know is we're going to get together and have some fun.
I absolutely love it. Totally respect that. One more segment coming up with Josh Goss. We're going to talk a little bit about fan questions, including the most difficult guy you guarded during your Wisconsin career. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show. All right, we're going to take one quick break for our great friends of the show, and then we're going to jump back into this conversation. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our incredible friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel is awesome. Right now, NFL fans, if you bet $5, you get $200 bonus bets back guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. FanDuel.com is incredible. The official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network, the biggest sportsbook out there. They are amazing and awesome. And you know that feeling when you hit a home run bet, that 3-team parlay, that 4-team parlay, maybe it's a 5-teamer, and you're sealing the deal with Tyree Walker, reaching over the end zone as you're screaming in the stands, seeing the dollar signs raining from the sky. I mean, I don't know that feeling because I don't ever hit parlays, but I'm sure there's people out there that do. And if you're going to hit those parlays, head over to FanDuel.com to do it again. A $5 bet gets you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Spice up your weekend. Do it responsibly as always, but it is the best platform. Parlays, teasers, future spreads. If you were betting on the Badgers, this is the place you have to do it. Again, do it responsibly, but spice up your weekend with the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. That's over at FanDuel.com. All right, let's jump back into this show. All right, Josh, we're going to finish up here with some fan questions. Again, a lot of people are excited that you're coming on the show. Still a fan favorite. I mentioned it, teased it before. This is from Neza. That man shut down Book, Yogi, Oladipo. Who was the toughest guard you had in the Big Ten or in your career at Wisconsin?
Shut down a loose term there, but best player, I mean, Devin Booker was, I tell people all the time, if Devin Booker played 38 minutes instead of 20 minutes, we would not be in Kentucky. We were probably not going to beat Kentucky that day. But he was up there. Honestly, like Jordan Taylor in practice, when he got mad, was pretty impossible to stop. And same thing with Frank Kaminsky. Every time I got switched on him, like I felt like I could always guard big guys pretty well. I feel like I give him trouble, even physicality and stuff. But Frank, there's nothing I could do with Frank. But yeah, I mean, another underrated guy was probably Joseph Young. I don't remember him from Oregon.
Yeah.
We played in both NCAA tournament years. I think he dropped like 25, 30 on us both times. And he's just the guy that, we're going to give up those 2-point jumpers. We're going to give up those coming off the screen, those contested shots. He didn't care. He wanted to take those shots, Those are the guys that I struggle with the most, was typically guys who like didn't care if you were in his face, because I was typically always going to be there. I was always going to contest. I was always going to make it tough. But some guys don't care if it's tough. They're going to take it, and that's what they want. And Joseph Young was one of those guys.
Let me ask you this. I asked Brandon Harrison, who's on the show a couple weeks ago, most underrated Badger, first person that comes to your mind. He said Josh Gosser, 100% Josh Gosser. Who would you say? Like somebody who doesn't get the recognition. And you mentioned Jordan Taylor. I almost feel like Jordan Taylor, despite being an All-American, doesn't quite get the recognition he deserves for being the total baller. I mean, anybody remembers that Ohio State game where he went just nuclear? He was incredible. Who comes to your mind when I say most underrated Badger?
John Lure, probably. Just because he wasn't as good as Frank, but he was close, and I don't think he gets – I think a lot of it is the eras, that was like right before like social media took off and all that. Like, that was when we were always really good, but it was kind of almost stale. Like we were always really good, and it was just like another team that was really good. And John didn't have the personality where he was going to gloat about himself, or that he was going to make it about himself and post-college, like, care about the attention. He didn't need the attention. He was a hell of a player. I mean, 18-10 pretty much every night, like first team all Big Ten. He was the guy that I came in as a freshman. He was a senior, and I was like, holy shit. Like, I got to play with, like, he didn't miss. He never missed a shot ever. At 7 feet tall and really good teammate. So I think he was up there. Jordan as well. There's a long list of guys though. I mean, even guys like Mike Wilkinson and Kirk Penny. I mean, you go back then, like, Mike Wilkinson, I don't think there's been so many big guys around, but he was kind of part of that time where kind of got Wisconsin to where it is now. So a lot of guys that I would say underrated for sure.
Yeah, Will could do just about anything. I wanted to just read this comment off. He said, this is from, I don't even know who this is from. I forgot the name, but he said, can you kindly pass Josh a note? There was a little kid that attended your camp many years ago from Port Washington, Cedarburg Youth, where you were incredibly kind, insightful, awesome to be around. Josh allowed the kid to use basketball to escape a broken home. He will and always be an incredible role model, my favorite athlete of all time. We need more Josh Gossers in this world.
That's really nice. That's a good note.
Old Bucky says, what's one thing Coach Ryan said or lesson that still sticks with you today? Also tell him Gosser's a legend and provided some of the best memories we've ever had. What's something that Coach Ryan taught you that still sticks with you?
A lot of things. I don't know if there's one thing specifically. I would more so just say like his concept of like teaching like basketball to the game of life. Like that was always kind of his thing. You could everything you do in basketball can translate to like life. And I now being like a grown up, they're supposed to be a grown up. Like I can see that totally. Like just like the discipline every single day, just doing things the right way, the process. Like things are typically going to work out in your favor, or if you just do the right things, do the little things. And, he always had a slogan in his office, even just like the word next. I don't know if you've heard that before from him, but he just literally one word next. And it was always just like, just focus on the next thing. In basketball, it was the next possession, the next game, the next practice. Like if you missed a shot, worry about the next one. If you do something great, don't get too high. There's still a next play coming. And now in my like working world and like parenting world, it's like, you have a bad day, bad whatever, like just focus on what's coming next. There's, just keep going, whatever's behind you, learn from it, but move on to the next thing. So I think that's something that Coach Ryan definitely taught us, like basketball and how it can translate to the rest of your life. And it's true. It is true.
This is a question I'm fascinated to get your take on. This is from JB. He says, what's your definition of a successful season? So like take last year, for example, you get a 5 seed, but then you get beat round 1 against a 12 seed. And quite frankly, you don't look great in that matchup. Is that a successful year?
Put it.
Yeah, I'm couching it. Is that a successful year?
For this season, are you saying successful this season or just in general?
Last year? Like, do you leave last year saying that's a successful season? You get the 5 seed, which is incredible, but then you get bounced by a 12.
I don't personally. I think our expectations should be higher, not ours as like fans. I mean, like internally, like the players. And that's one thing I learned too coming into college. I mean, I came into college as a freshman, and like to me, making the NCAA tournament as a 5 seed and making it to the Sweet 16 and finishing third in the Big Ten, that was successful. But as I developed throughout it's like, why don't we strive for more? Like we should have greater expectations for ourselves. Like national title final, like that should be our goal. And I think I'm not saying this team has to win a national championship for it to be successful, but we should be right there in the top of the Big Ten standings and, winning NCAA tournament games and making a deep run. And that's successful to me, not just, being in the mix a little bit and getting bounced early. So I'd like to see us win a few NCAA tournament games for it to be a successful season.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that standard's been set. A couple more really quick questions. Again, we're bouncing up to the point where I got to let you go. This is from UW Bone 24. He just asked, "Why are you so awesome?" You don't have to answer.
I'm not that awesome. Trust me. Just normal dude.
This was from Caleb, and he said, "Ask this in a respectful way." So I'm just going to put up his question. I'm going to say, in a respectful way, was the Harrison shot harder for you or losing for Duke?
Losing to Duke for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. The Harrison shot, we lost. That game was very hard, but still, it was the Final Four game. We still had another one to win. We guarded. Harrison didn't make a three the entire. I don't think he took a three the entire game actually, or made one. So, and that was in a time, back in 2013-14, 5 steps behind the line. That wasn't a common shot. Now it's very normal, but it was a shot that in a normal moment we would have taken. Obviously, in that point in the game, we didn't want him to take a three or anything like that, but rattled in, and we still had a chance to win. And to me, it's the Duke game, though. Because I felt like we actually deserved to win the title. Like we actually had a good enough team, and I thought we could have won it the year before too, no doubt about it. But it would have been a little bit more of a like, wow, holy shit, we did it, as opposed to like, yeah, we knew we should have done it. So.
Well, what gets lost in that Harrison shot is the next year he tried something similar, right? Towards the end, and he airballed it.
Yep.
But he did. He airballed it. Like that's a tough shot.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shot that he can make. I mean, he can make it. He's going to miss it more than he makes it. But yeah, at that time down two, that still hurts. But again, we had 8-10 seconds left to still come down and try to make a shot. Mm-hmm. I do remember just like guarding him too, and people were like, "Go attack!" And like he was getting ready to attack downhill, and then he just like pulled it. So this is one of those shots that he made a good play. I think he made a couple even the games before, big shots. So some guys just have a knack for making tough big shots, and he was one of them.
Nezda asks, angriest Bo Ryan ever got that you saw?
Oh man, I'm gonna need some time on this one. It was always like Michigan State week. I actually remember like my sophomore year, like the post game. God, people probably don't remember this game at all, but we lost to Michigan State at home in the Kohl Center. Draymond Green was on the team. It was when Ryan Evans banked in that shot that was going to send it into overtime, and it was like a half second too late, so we lost to Michigan State. Might have even been in overtime, or late in the game. And he went to the podium and said something like, "Violence ain't the answer. Like, what do you want me to do?" And I remember him coming to the locker room. He was just pissed at the refs, pissed at everybody. That Michigan State-Wisconsin thing, like I tell people all the time, practice week for Michigan State, it was always a level up. And Coach Ryan always had a different level of, but I think him and Izzo brought the best out in each other. And so whenever we lost to Michigan State, he was always pretty pissed.
We'll wrap up here again. I have more. I'm not going to be able to get to all these questions, but Caleb says, do you have any involvement with the program? I see him around a lot. And Herb asks, any interest in coaching? I know you do basketball clinics, you do basketball work still, but maybe at the collegiate level, is there ever any interest or pull there for you?
I don't know. Probably not. I got little kids, so I want to coach my kids. I live in Wisconsin. I live in the greater Madison area, so I'm still around. I'm a Wisconsin kid, so that's I come to some games once in a while. But no, I'm not involved in the program at all. I have friends, and Coach Gard obviously know well, and the coaches, and I'm around a little bit. But I'll definitely coach one day. I don't know what level it'll be at. Even if it's just coaching my kids, I definitely want to do that, spend time with my family and stuff. And my kids kind of are interested in sports, so I'm looking forward to that one day. Maybe in high school or whatever happens, we'll see. But yeah, I do some workouts with kids and some camps and stuff for those who are interested. It's just fun to be in the gym for sure and help and help kids kind of along with their journey and dream, just like I had when I was a kid. I always loved going to camps and stuff and learning from people. So try to give back when it makes sense.
He is Josh Gosser. Obviously, Badger fans know who that is. Thank you so much, Josh, for tuning in, man. Really do appreciate the insight. Badger fans, come check out Wisconsin, Arizona this week. Stripe out. Go to UW Badgers to see what color you need to wear in which spot. Josh, man, thank you as always. It was awesome to catch up.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Good to see you, man.